Hello, you're watching Conversations with Jennylyn. And lately, I know I've been bringing you content that might make some of you very uneasy, but it is my truth, and I believe it to be the truth. So you can feel free to turn this off if it's making you uncomfortable. But my guest tonight is someone who has really left an impression on me because I have been following his work and what he's been putting out. And he always has facts to support what he is saying. And for me, that equals credibility. And that's why I reached out to him and he was willing. And so tonight I get to share him with you. And his name is Sean Logan. Sean, welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me on. It's always fun to just come on these calls and connect with like-minded people and share ideas and share good information that we can utilize, tangible information.
So what the stuff that, not the stuff, but the information and the content that you are putting out here gets you beaten up every day, because I watch every single thing that you put out that I could get my hands on, and I see the attacks. And sometimes I will laugh because to me it's so funny. So why don't I start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell my viewers a little bit about you and what you do and how you ended up doing this.
Okay, well, I grew up in a suburban kind of middle class neighborhood that, everyone was just barely above the poverty line. And I grew up in a family that was indoctrinated by two religions at once and practicing two religions without even being aware of it and pushing these religions on me. And one of them was the religion of statism, which is the religion where the government, for the most part, is God. Truth comes from the government. The government is the authority. Everyone has to obey the government. And then the other religion that they were practicing was the religion of Christianity, which is, a religion that kind of follows this patriarchy kind of construct where there's a male, a father that rules over everyone and watches everything you do and also created everything there is in the universe and loves you and is all wise and all knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent, knows everything about everything there is to know. But he also created this place called hell where he's going to send you, where you're going to burn forever, be tortured for eternity if you don't practice their silly dogmas and superstitions. And I knew from a very young age that this was all fake, that everything around me was fake, that everyone was brainwashed. I didn't exactly know how or why. I just knew it. I could sense it. I had intuitions. I had data downloads at 11 years old that told me that this was fake. And at the time, my parents were sending me to an indoctrination camp, which was pushing both these religions down my throat at once. And I remember calling it to my mom when I was 11 years old. I told her that this was a brainwashing facility. That was the extent of my vocabulary back then. Now I just call them indoctrination camps. But through my whole incarnation, I've been aware of this. And I've always just looked for answers, and the answers have synchronistically just fallen into my lap more and more as I go through my journey. So that's kind of how I got, to making all the content that I do, and also getting attacked. As you mentioned, people call me the Antichrist. People call me the devil. People say I'm demon possessed. It's pretty hilarious.
I read it and I laugh. And this is what is so sad. I think there are two things. Well, there are many things wrong with the world, but I think two of the big factors that are affecting the world and continuing to create hatred is people not being able to acknowledge another person's beliefs without beating them up for it, number one. And number two, just listening to mainstream media and just accepting everything they're told and not doing any homework. And the other thing is, when they do their homework, they go to Google or to Chrome or wherever, where they're going to find exactly what they shouldn't, because it's the same narrative that they are getting from mainstream media. So it's very sad. As a young girl, I couldn't understand why most Christians did not believe in reincarnation but yet they were concerned about going to heaven or hell. So if there's no reincarnation, and if you just die and that's the end of you, what is going to heaven or what is going to hell? And this is a question I was asking that no one could answer. So I completely relate to what you were saying. But you are also involved in the financial world. Do you want to share a little bit about that so people can see that this is not all that you do?
Yeah. So aside from, teaching about the facade of religion and the corporate religious industrial complex, I also teach people what I call getting out of the matrix. And one thing that you need to get out of the matrix is you need to understand money, how it works, what it is, and how to attract it without having to work jobs where you fill out what I call a W-2 employee slave contract. So understanding money and markets and finance and investing is a key component of everything that I do here.
You call it the slave contract?
Well, yes. Everything that you put your signature on is you are signing away nature. That's why signature sounds like sign and nature. You're signing away your natural state of being, which is to be free and sovereign. But when you put your signature on all those government contracts, you are contracting into slavery under their jurisdiction. And this starts with the signing of the birth certificate that creates your citizenship, which is a slave contract with the Vatican. And it also puts you under the jurisdiction of the whole control matrix. And then it continues on. Your driver's license is also a contract that puts you under the jurisdiction of the matrix and their agents. Tax forms are contracts that put you under the jurisdiction of the IRS, which is just a fraudulent corporation that's based out of Puerto Rico that extorts people. And it goes beyond this. I mean, all the mortgage contracts that you sign, all these things are what's called adhesion contracts. And it is by people's own consent and their own ignorance that they contract themselves into slavery.
Well, it's a lot. That's a lot. And I could just watch people's faces as they're listening to you, but I've been following you and you have facts to support a lot of what you say. So it's not an opinion. But before we continue, I wanted to ask you, because you look like you're very young. How did you are very knowledgeable. And I must say at this point of the interview, how much respect I have for your intellect and all of the hard work that you've done to come up with what you share on your channel. What motivated you to go down that, what we call the rabbit hole? Because that's what everyone is trying to avoid.
I just have a passion for learning and knowledge and wisdom. I just love to learn. I love just finding a little thread of knowledge, and I continue to pull on that thread, and I have to keep pulling and see how far it goes. And when you develop just a love for learning, this whole world becomes really, really interesting and really, really exciting, because there's so much amazing stuff and so much amazing history and so many amazing secrets of this universe that have been hidden intentionally by the Matrix controllers. And life is just a lot more interesting when you're in a constant state of learning. So I'm just addicted to always learning things and seeing, how powerful I can become just through the power of my mind.
Well, I watch your content, and you cover a wide gamut. And what I marvel is how you connected the dots, because you've connected them beautifully. And anyone listening to you with an open mind will see what you're saying. I think the only hard part of that is, at first I was very depressed when I realized the life that I've lived has been like a complete lie, and how I have enslaved myself into these systems because that's what I was told to do. So how long ago did you start doing this research?
It started when my parents sent me to the indoctrination camps. So I was, at a very young age, I was told all these stories, basically they're myths, stuff like the Great Flood myth, the creation myth, the creation of man, the fall of man, the Tower of Babel, all these myths, these biblical myths that all connect with just ancient history. And these myths were bunched up into, or not bunched up into, what it says, they were all placed under this umbrella of a religious cult. And they use this to try to create a narrative that would be what is today known as most religions. But they took out a lot of very important facts. They took out a lot of very important pieces to this whole historical timeline, and the mythology was very vague. So I started learning about all this stuff at a very young age, and I didn't have all the answers back then. All I knew that is there was something very, very wrong with all of it. And then once the internet became available to everyone and I could order any book I want on Amazon, and I could watch any documentary, or I could type anything into a search engine, and I could connect with other translators and other researchers on social media, then it was just like just information overload of everything I needed to connect an enormous amount of dots and fill in all the missing puzzle pieces.
But wait, is that information so easily accessible? Because if we've been lied to this many years on such a deep level, how were you able to come up with the information to debunk a lot of what, well, I want to call them myths, because you call them myths? How were you able to come up with this so easily? I would think it would be hidden now.
Well, it wasn't easy. I've probably read over a dozen books just on religion, and then a whole bunch more on other various topics that kind of mix in together with it. But lots and lots of reading. I mean, there's been times where I would kind of just become a ghost for, I think the longest I did was 6 months. No partying, no drinking, no dating, no social life. All I would do was just read and study and meditate. I've fasted. I've opened my pineal gland and really just tried to tap in with experimenting with the pineal gland so that I could get the answers I wanted. So there was, there's been times where I kind of just isolated myself from society because I knew that everything was fake and I wanted the answers, and that was more important to me than anything else. But, it's over the years, it's kind of just been an ongoing thing of, traveling to ancient sites and meeting other people. So it wasn't easy. It was more of like a long-term thing of just different pieces of data that I've acquired through my incarnation.
So we haven't talked about your cryptocurrency and your crypto and blockchain work. I'd like to integrate that into tonight's segment, and then we can go back to some of the research you've done that's led you to the facts that you've been publishing. And I'm calling them facts. I'm probably going to get attacked too, but I don't really care. I feel that there are too many bullies in the world, and if they do not understand what you're saying, then they start ripping you apart. That's one thing that concerns me for you. But tell us what you do in the blockchain and the crypto world, and then we can come back to this.
Well, with the cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology, this is just a tool that I've used to escape the rat race aspect of the matrix. Mm-hmm. When you understand how to trade cryptocurrencies or just trade any kind of assets, trading stocks, trading Forex, trading crypto, if you understand the skills of how to trade and how to just move money around as the markets go through their boom and bust cycles and increase your wealth in perpetuity while leveraging the volatility of these markets, you don't have to work for other people. You can take a one-way flight anywhere in the world and financially sustain yourself. And you'll eventually get to a point where you have so many different assets that are liquid that you can you can retire doing this stuff. And you don't need to apply for a job. All you need is a computer and a smartphone, and you can enter these markets and start leveraging them and make millions and millions and millions of dollars if you understand it and you put your mind to it. And you have the patience to go through the learning curve and learn how to mitigate risk. Again, I can't guarantee everyone will become a millionaire. A lot of people lose money trying to do this, but usually the people that lose money is because they're trying to get an instantaneous result. They want instant gratification, and they're not willing to have the patience to really learn these skills, because my journey has been several years learning how to do all this stuff to get where I am today, to where I don't have to work for other people.
Have you ever worked for other people?
When I was a teenager, yes. I used to really like doing bike stunts, BMX and mountain bike riding. So I used to work at a bike shop when I was a teenager.
I could totally see you doing that. So anyway, you're clearly someone who has a very strong will, and I really admire that. So now that we've shared that with my viewers, and they get a little bit of a background on you, would you say now today that your total focus really though is on bringing the truth to the world? Because you share at least 2 or 3 segments per day, am I correct?
Sometimes, yeah, I'll post multiple times a day. But yes, my main goal is to destroy the matrix, to help be part of taking down the matrix from within and help humanity rise to a higher level of consciousness. And again, the reason that I teach cryptocurrency and blockchain and investing in finance and trading is because the number one thing that keeps people enslaved is their lack of knowledge of what money is and how money works, and how everything is manipulated through money, specifically the weaponized United States dollar, the central banks, and the hedge funds.
I have to say you are so impressive, because I've watched your videos, so I know what I'm talking about. And by the way, I don't want to wrap this show up without telling people where to find your content. So I'd like to use this opportunity for you to tell them where they could find you, so that they can go check out what you've done until we can bring more segments to them.
Sure. Well, you can find me if you search Out of the Matrix on TikTok. Trigger warning: if you're religious, you might get offended. If you think you live in a free country in the United States, you might get offended. If you define success as going to school, getting good grades, and getting a job, and making $40K a year, you might get offended. You can also find me on YouTube. I have a channel called Universal Archaeology. And yeah, TikTok and YouTube.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the archaeology. Is that part of your work, so that you can bring the facts that you are telling us, so you can prove what you're saying?
Well, everything that I do, even in terms of like teaching money and finance and teaching the truth about the banking industry and how the world is controlled through the money system, I actually learned about that through archaeology simultaneously, because when I started studying archaeology, I realized that everything we have today, our banking infrastructure, our governments, the money systems, all of this stuff, this didn't just like evolve here out of nowhere. These systems were brought to us by an ancient advanced race. And we discover, the archaeologists, specifically George Smith in the 1800s, was sent on an excavation in the Middle East, and they discovered an Assyrian king's library. His name was Ashurbanipal. It took 70 years to excavate this entire place. They found over 30,000 tablets written in an ancient language called cuneiform. It's the language of the gods. It's one of the most ancient, oldest language that archaeologists have discovered. And this stuff dates back thousands and thousands and thousands of years before the invention of Christianity. And on these tablets, they find not only all of the stories of the Old Testament, which proves that the King James Bible is a work of plagiarism, but they also find things like sales receipts, titles, deeds, banking statements, taxation documents, divorce records, court records, all of this stuff on these cuneiform tablets. Well, when you study like these cuneiform tablets and Ashurbanipal and who these people were, this is the ancient Sumerian gods, also known as the Anunnaki, also known as Yahweh from the Bible, also known as Zeus from Greek mythology, also known as Hermes Trismegistus by the Greeks, also known as Mercury by the Romans. All the gods of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Catholic gods, the gods of Greek mythology, Roman mythology, all of those gods are actually the same as the Anunnaki and the Sumerian gods. And it all traces back to these cuneiform tablets that they discover. And these gods, and when I call them gods, I'm not talking about the all-powerful, all-knowing creators of the universe. These were just people like us that had very highly advanced technology and a lot of wisdom, a lot of money, a lot of power. And they set up our whole civilization, our infrastructure, our languages, our banking systems, our government systems, our agricultural systems, and even down to like the language that we speak. They created all of our languages, and even our languages are used against us. We can get more into that. But everything that we have as far as a society, as a human species, we didn't evolve from fish or from apes. There was an ancient advanced race that came here, and they were doing everything from genetic experiments to mining minerals and precious metals to agricultural type of work. Even it says in these ancient cuneiform tablets, like the Tigris and Euphrates River, those were irrigation canals that they dug out with their advanced technology. Those aren't naturally forming rivers. So it goes really, really deep when you start studying archaeology. And I've always just had an intuition and an interest in ancient history and archaeology. And the more I started studying at a very young age. And the more I studied it, I learned how the whole world has been controlled and enslaved.
How did your parents feel about you going down this rabbit hole?
Well, I don't think they really mind anymore. But back then they were very religious and they didn't like it at all. They would try to send me to counselors and all this stuff. And, oh, there's something wrong with him. He doesn't just want to accept blindly our dogmas and superstitions. And he doesn't want to pay attention in school. They used to try to send me to counselors and all this stuff.
Wow. Because it's really hard when you've been born into these belief structures. Like, we're born and our brains are blank. But then we are fed information from our parents and all these other, schools. And to me, when you have your belief structure shattered like that, it's difficult. And I could see why people react to what you're saying the way they do, because it sounds like craziness. And that's what they call anything that doesn't resonate with them, especially when it comes to religion and these other beliefs that they've held so dear. Like, there are people who go to church 2-3 times a week, and they give, as you know, a large portion of their small income to these churches. I used to do that. And so now I get angry as I watch you, and I'm learning. I've learned so much from you, and thank you for that. But here's my thing. I worry about you. You are one of 20 spiritual teachers that I have followed, and I feel like I've definitely stepped up in terms of my spiritual growth. And I feel like I'm on solid ground, thanks to you guys who done the hard work for me. But they have pulled down some of my videos, and I've been ticketed. YouTube has. At least once they sent me a ticket and warned me. And I watch your content and I worry for you. Are you concerned? I know I asked you before and you said, I'm not big time. I'm not big time. I never try to be big time. It doesn't matter. Their algorithms will flag you. Aren't you worried?
Well, I mean, I've been getting censored on pretty much every social media platform since 2017. So I'm not really worried about the censorship. I'm not really that famous. I mean, if I was as famous as Justin Bieber, they probably would have killed me a long time ago. But I'm not very famous. And now it's kind of getting to a point where, like, I'm not the only one that knows this.
Right.
I mean, there's so many people that will stand behind everything I say and verify it, that it's like they can't they can't stop this knowledge from getting out. I'm just one of, a million people that know this, and soon there's going to be millions more, and soon billions of people are going to know this. They're all going to know the truth about how the human Homo sapien species came into existence, and they're going to know the truth about how the whole system of enslavement works.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if they have to kill people for putting the truth out there, they're going to be killing a lot of us. I just completed watching Russell Brand while I was getting ready for you. He was putting out an interview with Elon Musk. I think it's time the world wakes up to the truth, because we all deserve to live a good life and not just be slaves to some higher power. So before we continue the interview, because when you're doing interviews like this, the time runs out. We are down to 17 minutes. And so since this is our first visit, because I'm really hoping you will afford me the time to do other segments, I want you to tell me what you want to make sure that's included in this segment that I haven't asked you. Because this is like an introductory segment to people who've never heard of you.
Okay. So, well, we went over a little bit about the gods of the Bible and how religion is used as a control mechanism. I call it the corporate religious industrial complex. And they use the same exact strategies that the government uses to control people. And again, this goes back, or this proves more that government is religion. The religion of statism is the religion of government. But they use what's called a Hegelian dialectic. And the Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, they wait for the people to react, and then they come in with their solution. But their solution is never anything good to benefit the people. It's something that will perpetuate their evil agenda. And I'll give you an example of how the government uses this and how the religious corporate industrial complex uses this. The government used it when they wanted to gain support from the tax slaves to invade Iraq and recover all the ancient artifacts from the museum in Baghdad, and also take control of the natural resources like oil, and stop Saddam Hussein from going back to a gold standard, which would massively compete with the US dollar. So what they did is they used a Hegelian dialectic. They created a problem. They blew up the World Trade Center. But the reaction, fear, terrorists, oh my God. The solution, we got to invade Iraq, and we got to pass the Patriot Act, which takes away a bunch of your freedom and increases taxes. So they wanted to take away people's freedom and steal people's money, basically. So they accomplished that using a Hegelian dialectic. The corporate religious industrial complex also uses a Hegelian dialectic in a very similar way. They create a problem. You're going to go to hell when you die. Now, this is a fake problem. The blowing up of the World Trade Center, that was a real thing. So they create the problem, hell. The reaction, fear. The solution, give us your money. Pay us a penance, is what they call it in the Catholic Church. You got to pay a penance to be forgiven of your sins and have a better chance of getting into heaven. Or you got to pay a tithing for a better chance to get into heaven. Or you got to pay a donation. Or in the religion of statism, you got to pay a tax, and it's mandatory. And if you don't do it, we're going to come after you. So it's all a big scam. It's all a big fraud. The government is a fraud. The religious corporate industrial complex is a fraud. It's all about money and banking. They just want to take your money. And just like how in the corporate religious industrial complex, they have these churches, these temple buildings that are supposed to be holy and sacred. But the government also has sacred temples and buildings like the White House. That is a religious temple in Washington, D.C. All 50 states, each one of them has a Capitol building, a big government building. Those are religious temples. The banks are religious temples. The courthouses are religious temples. And even in the courthouses, they have teller windows because the courthouses are actually privately owned for-profit banking corporations. And the police that get everyone into the court systems from code, statutes, city ordinances, and all these ridiculous policies that they make up that aren't even laws. You know, the police are also corporate employees. They're all just corporate employees. they're no different than a Walmart employee, except for they go around with guns and intimidate people and extort people. And all of the court systems in our country, they're privately owned banking corporations. And the lawyers and the attorneys are part of the Bar Association, the British Accreditation Registry. And the B, again, stands for British. That's the British Crown. We've been infiltrated by the Brits, by the Vatican. So it's all just a big religion. Like everyone in the United States and all the other countries too, they're all practicing a big religion.
Are you referring to like the British royal family, that whole dynasty?
Yes. And this is also, and when we go down that rabbit hole, we're getting into the bloodlines, the royal bloodlines of the Illuminati, which all trace back to the ancient Sumerian gods. The cuneiform tablets talk about them. In fact, there's in Ashurbanipal's library, George Smith discovered the ancient Sumerian kings list, a genealogy record dating back like 400,000 years, and all the presidents, all the royalty are all part of this bloodline. People know them as the Illuminati bloodline. But these bloodlines of these ancient beings that came here, they inherited all the wealth, they inherited all the power, they inherited all the money, they inherited all the knowledge. And this is where the divine right to rule comes from. This is where the whole idea of kings and queens and princes and royal family, it all traces back to these ancient Sumerian beings that came here hundreds of thousands of years ago. And over the hundreds of thousands of years, they've been doing genetic experiments. They've been extracting resources. They've been launching civilizations. They've been enslaving people. They've been waging wars. All of the bad things that happen in the wars and the politics and the division and the propaganda campaigns, it all traces back to these ancient cuneiform tablets and these ancient religions.
Wow. So, I'm pretty much informed, I would say, on a level enough to understand what you're saying. And some of this is still confusing for me. So I could imagine my regular viewers watching this and going, what is this segment all about? But I'm hoping to bring them a lot more like this because, like you, my goal is to see people wake up to the truth. Because I think the more of us who wake up, the better, the easier it will be to sort of dumb down the bullies, is what I call them. And so hats off to you for all your hard work. You're young, and most people your age are out having fun. And you're working so hard doing this. I watch a few other people. One is a guy called Jason Shorka. I don't know if you've heard of Jason. He has his own television station because, I've been following these people for years, and you're all saying the same thing, just in different degrees. But you, I think, is the one who's done so much research into the genealogy and the historical past that somehow hasn't been mentioned to me before in my lifetime. So thank you for that. What is the thing that disturbs you the most about what you have been discovering in your research and your hard work?
What disturbs me the most is that the human Homo sapien species, us, we are being farmed by a highly advanced race and also by their bloodline. And they use humans for very horrible things, especially children. Now, the human body produces all kinds of valuable commodities that can be utilized for all kinds of different purposes, from the adrenochrome harvesting that the Illuminati like to get high off, to the white blood cells, to sperms, eggs, genetic material. All of these things can be used in commerce, intergalactic commerce. All of these things can be used for all kinds of agendas. Humans are sold into sex slavery. Humans are experimented on. Human trafficking is a massive problem on this planet, and this whole corrupt system that has enslaved everyone, the entire infrastructure of this entire world is designed for their human trafficking to function. So they do organ harvesting, child trafficking, cannibalism, the adrenochrome harvesting, where they have to torture children and then extract the adrenaline that gets released into the blood. They get high off of it. And all of this is going on underground. and they take children under the guise of protection with a 3-letter agency called Child Protective Services. And when they use all these government agencies and the hospitals, Planned Parenthood, all of these big buildings that are built into our infrastructure that people just drive by every day, and they think it's normal. Planned Parenthood, and all the mainstream hospitals, Walmarts, all of these things are part of a massive human trafficking business that's been facilitated for like thousands of years. I mean, this goes back thousands of years. When you study ancient archaeology and ancient history and the history of the Sumerian gods, the adrenochrome harvesting, the human trafficking, all this stuff, that, using humans for their DNA and the genetic experiments, this stuff dates back again to the Genesis of the Bible, because that was one of the more ancient documents that we have of genetic experiments. And then even that's why Genesis is spelled the way it is. The word genes is in Genesis. Genes, the genes of Isis is Genesis, and Isis was one of the Sumerian gods that took part in the genetic experiment to create us. The generations of Isis, the genealogy of Isis, that's the Genesis. So genetic engineering, experimenting, creating your own versions of the human slave species with, through splicing and hybridizing. This has been going on for a very long time, and people need to realize that this is what highly advanced beings are capable of doing, and you will also be capable of doing this if you can get enough money and wealth and power and understanding. You will have the opportunity to genetically engineer your own species. You will have the opportunity to buy and sell planets. You can control your own planet if you can reach that level in this matrix. There's levels to this game, and this is what the highly advanced beings do. And you can see this too in Hollywood. They'll tell you in the films, if you start watching science fiction films in Hollywood, they market it to the masses as fiction, but they're not just making these ideas up out of thin air. They're getting all these ideas and these inspirations for these sci-fi films. They get all of it from the ancient cuneiform tablets, the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki, the biblical text, all the ancient scripture. Watch the movie Stargate from the 1990s, starring Kurt Russell. Watch the movie Star Wars. There's so much occult knowledge in that movie. Watch the movie Jupiter Ascending, starring Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum. There's so many more out there, even Star Trek. But all of these science fiction films, they tell you in the films what's happened. They just market it to everyone as fiction, so they don't really think about it in a way like, oh my God, we need to do something about this.
Why do you think they do that? Do you think that they really think, well, we have been ignorant because we've all paid our money and gone and been entertained by it, and none of us, I often say, whose mind is behind a story like this? What mind comes up with the script for this movie? That's something I say often when I see some of these movies. And now you're not the only one saying that they've been showing it to us. We've just been blinded because we're blinded for so many reasons. And some people will remain blind because it's too difficult for them to see the truth.
I have theories about that. So one of my theories is that there's people in Hollywood that just think that it's a really cool idea for a script, because it is. It's an amazing, fascinating story. It's incredible. The storyline and the hidden history. It is really incredible. And some of these producers might just be really fascinated with ancient history. Some of them, I believe, may have this agenda to put it right in front of our faces, because they have a superstition that as long as they tell us what they're doing, then they don't have to deal with the karmic retribution. And we see that time and time again. Mm-hmm. And then my other theory is that there might also be what's called light workers in Hollywood that are trying to make films about this to show people and just kind of put it out there, and at least just put it out there as, put it into the subconscious mind so that people start thinking about it. And then eventually they will connect the dots and realize, whoa, this stuff is actually true. So those are my theories on why Hollywood producers would, make so many films about this stuff. And also too, with the thing about karmic retribution, they don't just tell us in Hollywood films. They tell us on the cover of The Economist magazine. They tell us in television shows like The Simpsons. They tell us all over the place. I mean, sometimes I'll put it on a billboard, like the World Economic Forum. They're putting stuff on billboards saying you will own nothing and be happy. So it's all out there. It's in plain sight. It might be hidden in plain sight to the people that don't understand the symbolism and can't read between the lines, and to the people that have not opened their pineal gland, it is hidden in plain sight. But when you open your pineal gland and expand your consciousness, you will gain knowledge and wisdom, and you will begin to see through all the lies, and you will begin to see through the facade and connect the dots.
How many followers do you have? Do you know?
So on TikTok, I think I'm at 17,000. I'd probably have a lot more, but they've deleted all my TikToks. This is my 5th one. They delete me almost every time at some point. So currently, I'm at 17,000 followers on TikTok. My 5th account. My archaeology channel, I think, has like 8,000 followers, and I think I've got around like 20 something thousand on my Instagrams, and about 10,000 on a Facebook.
You need to go to Rumble.
I do have a Rumble.
You do? You have a Rumble account? Okay. So people...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My Rumble account is higher consciousness. I don't really upload there very much just because there's not very much traffic on there.
Well, what you need to do is on TikTok, tell people to go there to find you, because, I mean, when they were trying to ban TikTok, I remember saying in my divine wisdom, because this didn't come from me, it's a spiritual download I got. But one of the reasons they were trying to ban it is we had a little bit more freedom there. The content wasn't as censored. But now I notice there's a lot of censoring going on TikTok too. I saved some of your segments and I came back and they were gone. So that for me, anytime they pull something down, it's confirmation that it's the truth. Because they allow everything else. And this is a country where we have freedom of speech. So let's put garbage out there and let people decide if it's garbage or not. Why are you pulling it down if we're not exposing what you're hiding? And so whenever a video gets pulled down anywhere, I want to find it because I know it's a very pertinent piece of information that I need. That's why it's gone. So, Sean, I want to really thank you because you could be doing so much with your time. And I love that you have the same passion I have to wake people up to the truth. I remember as a young girl, I'm still very, very curious. Things have to make sense, but I'm a little lazy, so I don't go to the extent you go to find the truth. I also feel as a woman, I'm more limited because I can't really go tripsing around the world looking for facts. It's a little different when you're a woman. So I'm really grateful for all the hard work that you're doing to bring facts to us. So we've run out of time, and before I wrap, you tell us what you want us to wrap with.
Okay, so aside from all the kind of scary and not so happy things I talked about, even though there's been a massive enslavement system installed on our world, the reason that these enslavers have to try so hard to enslave us by poisoning our water, chemtrails in the air, poisoning our minds with garbage on television, fake religions, fake government, fake money, fake news, fake teachers, all that. The reason they have to go through such an extent to keep us enslaved is because we have the potential to do anything. We can accomplish anything. We can live forever. We can extend our lifespans indefinitely in these bodies through genetic engineering and understanding the telomeres and the chromosomes. We can create species. We can travel anywhere we want in this universe once we unlock the technology. We can provide the entire world with free, renewable, clean electricity through zero-point energy and toroidal energy. We can have a civilization where there's no disease, where there's no war, where there's no death. We can get rid of all of those bad things that we don't like but we have to open our pineal glands, connect with the higher consciousness that flows through all of us, and unlock all these technologies that have been hidden from us. The technologies that we will unlock will solve all the problems on this world. They've been around for a very long time, but they've been hidden from us. The advanced technologies, regrowing limbs, healing any and all diseases through the technology of energy and vibration and sound. We can solve the world hunger issue, because once we have unlocked free electricity, we'll be able to grow enough clean organic food for everyone, because the number one expense of growing food is electricity. So all of the problems that exist in the world will be gone in an instant once everyone opens their pineal gland and wakes up and sees through this facade.
And what hope do you have for this happening in our lifetime?
The hope that I have is all of the volunteers that are incarnating on this world as slaves, that have an advanced awareness and advanced understanding of everything that's going on, that can see things that the majority of people can't. We're incarnating on this world by the millions, and we're going to destroy the Matrix.
You think we will?
Yes.
I know a lot of spiritual teachers are saying this, and it really makes me happy. It really, really does. Only because I'm a humanitarian and I hate to see people being taken advantage, lied to, and enslaved by bullies. I hate bullies. That's kind of why I started my show. Sean, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to edit this and get it to you soon. And thank you so much for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. I call my show Conversations with Jennylyn because that's what I like to do, to talk to people of all walks of life with all different views and opinions, and I respect them all. And I must say that this is for entertainment purposes only. But stay tuned, because as soon as Sean can, I'd love to bring him back, and we will see you next time with another segment. Thank you.